The Second Amendment, how important is it? And what about elections? Should we have people taking the day off to vote? We talk about that and much more on this episode of The Crude Truth.
In 1901, at Spindletop Hill near Beaumont, the future of Texas changed dramatically as, like a fountain of fortune, thousands of barrels of oil burst from the earth towards the sky. Soon, Detroit would be cranking out Model Ts by the millions, and America was on the move, thanks to the black gold being produced in Texas. Now, more than a century later, the vehicles are different, but nothing else has truly changed. Sure, there may be many other alternative energy sources like wind and solar and electric. But let's be honest, America depends on oil and entrepreneurs. And if the USA is truly going to be independent, it has to know the crude truth.
This episode is brought to you by LFS Chemistry. We are committed to being good stewards of the environment. We are providing the tools so you can be too. NAPE Expo, where deals happen. Air Compressor Solutions. When everything is on the line, Air Compressor Solutions is the dependable choice to keep commercial business powered up. Sandstone Group. Exec Crew. Elevate your network, elevate your knowledge. Texas Star Alliance. Pecos Country Operating. Fueling our future.
Well, hello again, and thank you as always for tuning in to another episode of The Crude Truth. Well, here we are again at our Dallas studios, so thank you all very much to the Real News Communications, as always, for hosting these amazing shows for us. But today, I am just super excited. My guest today is somebody that you probably have heard of but didn't know you've heard of them, or if you're a female out there that watched, so you might have even worn her clothing line if you definitely like to conceal a handgun while you're out and about during the day. My guest today is a lady that has just been rocking the world from the Second Amendment to voter rights to doing nonprofits. Oh, and by the way, she's a mom of two. My guest today is Miss Amy Robbins. Amy, how are you?
Well, when you say it like that, I'm like, wow, I'm even like, busying myself out, like thinking about
wearing yourself out just like that.
Wearing myself out just listening to that. Yes. How are you? I'm doing good.
Oh my gosh, I'm doing well. And Amy, thank you so much for coming in today. You have just been, I use this word term, but it is so important that you're blazing a trail. Again, I just listed off things that, your accolades are second to none.
Thank you.
And you've been doing it for longer than it's been a thing. I use quotation for, Amy, for those out there that do not know you, I want to just dive into your successful company just right off the bat here, Alexo Athletica.
Yes, that's it. Alexo Athletica. I know. We didn't really take into consideration how much of a tongue twister that was going to be when we did this. It was just a really cool name, and I can tell you more about that later, but you did a great job.
Well, tell me about that, and then we'll dive there, and then we'll just go into you in the forms of fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2015, I went out to go train for the White Rock Marathon here in Dallas. Yeah. And at that point, I had never really had anything scary or anything that made me feel unsafe when I went running. So carrying a self-defense tool on my body was really it was not top of mind. It was not anything that I had ever done. I mean, most of the time I didn't even run with my phone. I like to be hands-free and just go out and get my run. So in 2015, when I went out, this day was a little bit different. I remember it, for any of you who are familiar with this area, I was running out in Prosper before Prosper was what it is today. Okay. So a lot of roads that had no homes, no people. It was real kind of secluded back there, and I typically felt very safe. But this day, I remember hearing a car in the background, and when I turned around, there was this van. It was full of men. It was about 7 guys in this van, and they pulled up really close to me, rolled the windows down, started doing this aggressive catcalling and harassing, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just ignore them and they'll drive away. And I just kept doing my thing and running, and they drove to the end of the road, and they circled back and did it again. And it was the first time in my life I ever thought, okay, if this were to escalate beyond just the catcalling, beyond the harassing, what am I going to do? You've got 7-1. My odds aren't very good. Yeah. Men are typically bigger, stronger, faster anyways. I'm not going to be able to fight this off. And I did the only thing that I knew what to do. I actually just started praying. And I was like, God, please, please let them just drive away. I feel very uncomfortable. This is not safe. I don't like that my life, that I'm defenseless at this point. And I said, if you just give me a second chance, like I will do something with my second chance. Please just let them drive away. Luckily they did. And I tell people my story ended there, thankfully. And I ran home. I jumped immediately on the phone. And I called my buddy who did license to carry classes. And I was like, okay, I had been doing this show for the NRA prior to this, and I was like, it's all making sense now. I understand why you're encouraging people to be prepared to take their safety into their own hands. And I was like, it makes sense. Sign me up. I want the next license to carry course. I took that course. I went and got my first handgun. I think it was a Glock 43 at that point. I was like, all right, I'm ready. Here we go. Where am I going to put this? Now I want to go run. Where do I put this on my body? I was like, surely there's got to be something that's out there that has made this very easy. Because as I did my research, I found out that 80% of women at that point had mentioned that their safety had felt threatened at some point while they were walking or running. I was like, that's a large amount of women. And surely someone's done something about this. Yes. So, I went and looked in the athletic space. No holsters in their pants. I went and looked at the firearm industry, and there was no holsters in the pants and nothing that looked fashionable. And I was like, this is not going to work for women to take their safety serious and keep tools on their body. They don't want to sacrifice their fashion for function, but they also want it to be very easy and very comfortable. And since there was nothing on the market, I decided to do something about it. And so I created the very first concealed carry activewear line in 2015.
I call it Alexo Athletica.
Yeah, so the name came from, as I told my husband this crazy idea that I had, that I wanted to see more and more women feel empowered on their run, feel empowered to take their safety back and to feel just confident while they were out and about wearing activewear. I said, there's a lot of women that want to do this. And I was giving my husband the business plan, and he was like, I think you're onto something here. Let's do it. So we were on a road trip. And we're like, okay, what are we going to call this? And I said, well, I love the Greek language. And we found a word in the Greek language, Alexo, which actually means to defend and to help. And so I said, that is great. I love that. And then Athletica. So really we wanted 2A. So we were always going to be a company that was not going to shy away from supporting the Second Amendment and supporting women and men's rights to be able to take care of themselves. And so Alexo Athletica is your AA, your 2A meaning. So
I love it.
Yes. So that's how we came up with that name. Yeah. Okay. It's a little bit of a tongue twister, but it's once you get it down, it just kind of rolls off your tongue.
It actually does. Alexo Athletica. It's like, oh man, where'd you get that gym shirt on, Alexo?
Alexo. Mm-hmm.
I love it. So what's the website for people to go to?
AlexoAthletica.com.
Okay.
Yep. And we're really active on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, if you're looking to see, how does this actually work? Mm-hmm. So the way that we designed the clothes, we actually built in a sturdy waistband, and we started out with just leggings. So we started out with leggings and then jackets and tops that would complement the leggings, because we really were going to be geared towards runners initially. Mm-hmm. From there, we expanded our line to shorts, joggers, skirts. I mean, we have everything now. We have the largest line of concealed carry activewear on the market. And it's just got a lot of pockets built into the waistband. And then what also makes it very special is that it's reinforced. So even if you wanted to clip, let's say, a Kydex holster or something into the pants, you could, and your pants aren't going to sag. The firearm's not going to fall out. It's not going to fold over. And I think I've actually put 4 guns in the pants before and showed people, look, the pants aren't falling down. It secures the weight, and it's still really comfortable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I want to give you a semi-hard time real quick. I know the president of Real News came in the studio, and he was like, are you packing right now? And you didn't confirm nor deny.
That is the beauty of concealed carry, to me, I know that they've got open carry now in several states. And I support people's right to do how they're comfortable carrying. Right. For me, I like it to be concealed. I like the element of surprise. I like to be underestimated a little bit, where if someone were to look at me, they would probably be like, if that girl's a soft target, that's who I want to go after. They would be picking the wrong person. So,
I'm glad you brought up the open carry. I'm same thing. I believe in either one. I went to a little, what do you call it? Cafe there over in the mid-cities area over the weekend. Me and my 2-year-old went for breakfast Saturday morning, and I had 2 guys in there, and they were big men. And they had these giant, pistols just hanging right there. And I'm like, I'm watching you the whole time.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'm like, really, do we really need it at a cafe with families in the morning? And I understand you never know.
You never know.
You never know. But I'm just kind of like, really, guys, like, is this got to be in the place that you just feel great?
You know, it could be. I think that's the point. It's like, you really just now in this day, like, just you have to be prepared because there's just crazy things that are going on and people want to feel safe. But I think for me personally, I want to have it concealed. I want to have it in a place that I can easily access it and get to it, but that's not going to make me a target from somebody that's looking to steal the firearm or to, if they are choosing who they're going to take out first. I don't want to be on that. I don't want to be on that list necessarily.
No.
So,
let's talk about the Second Amendment because you and your team, you have a whole team. We kind of talked about that, and I want to unpack Prosper and the NRA here in a minute also, okay? And also almost...
There's time to unpack all
I
this.
know,
Yeah.
and almost a 20-year marriage.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and in fact, let's go there and let's talk about Prosper. Because in our pre-meeting, you were talking about you've known your husband since y'all been best friends since you were 7.
Yep.
Please, let's talk about that and how you got to NRA, then up to Athletica.
Sure. Yeah. So, my husband and I, just starting there, both of our dads were on staff at a church together. We met in Sunday school class. It's really, he loves to tell the story, and I'm like embarrassed for him to tell the story because there was, at that age, the girls usually grow a lot faster. And so I was a lot taller than him at that age, but I thought he was really cute. So, your way of flirting when you're 7 is to pick on somebody, or at least I thought so, and so I remember like he was coloring and I made fun of him and it hurt his feelings. So he kicked me in the shin. I started crying. We were both crying, and then we ended up being best friends after that. So it all worked out. But we got married right out of college, and it's been really interesting because like neither of us, we always thought we would work together and do something to build a company. I've always been very entrepreneurial. I just didn't know what that looked like. I knew that when I had my business, it had to give back. I wanted to help as many people as I could, and I wanted to solve problems. And, when we got to this point with Alexo, when we kicked off, he was still working his full-time job. He had a great corporate job. And we say we burned all the ships 2 years in, and he jumped on board to run. He's our COO. He runs our operations. He comes up with a ton of our designs, especially with the men's line. And so it's just been, it's really interesting. A lot of people come up to me all the time. And they're like, I could never work with my spouse. I'm like, you know what? It just works. Our strengths kind of balance each other out. And the things that I am not good at, especially on the operations side, he is phenomenal at that and has just been like a huge asset to helping this company grow.
Well, you talk about that. I'm in the oil and gas industry, and I work with my family. And, your husband's your family. So
yep.
I think if you can't do everything, like you said it in the pre-meeting, it's like it takes a village.
Yep.
And if you have your team in place, it's like, and these are the people you're supposed to trust the most and be with, why would you not want to work with?
Exactly.
Don't get me wrong. There's some days where I just, I don't want to go, Dad, like, seriously, like,
There's some different challenges with it. Yes, for sure. But we've really learned how to work very, very well together. And we have, our goals are aligned. And I think that is what's so important for working with family businesses. Like, we have very aligned goals, and we want to, not just for the business, but for our family and for where we want to go. And so it's been very helpful in that sense.
And I think that's also very important. Like the business, the goals are aligned. That's so important because, like, hey, we have the same mission, same goal in mind.
Yep. When you're up till 5 a.m. and I'm up working till 5 a.m. and we all know startup businesses there's no sleeping. You run your own company, there's no days off. And
there are no days off, and then of course then you got to be able to shut it off. And that to me is also important. Like, you got to know when to shut it off.
Yeah.
So you guys have been doing this, and then you mentioned Prosper, and there's such a small town. Let's
Well, it was when I first moved. So my dad, we've been in Dallas, like the DFW Metroplex, my entire life. We're like 7th generation Texans on both sides of my family. And so we love Texas, been here forever. But my dad wanted land. He wanted to move out. And, he wanted to give us a small town experience, I suppose. And so he moved us out to this little place called Prosper when we were growing up. And it was definitely not the Prosper. If anyone's now looking at the map, they're like, wait, that's not a small town. Oh, it was. It was when we got out there. And I tell this funny story is my dad, wanted to, because it was very country. It was still the very traditional ranching, farming. A lot of people had animals, and they still had the 4-H club and the ag club. And there was only one school. That's not true. They had just opened an elementary school, but it was 5th through 12th grade in my school building.
Oh my God.
When we got out there. And so my dad's great idea to help us fit in was to buy us lambs. Okay. And make us show them in these things called ag shows.
Yes.
And I tell people, like, that was probably one of the greatest experiences of my life because I failed every time I went. I got last place every time I went to these ag shows, but it got me out of my comfort zone. It helped me get used to, you know what, like, you just got to keep moving forward. And we realized ag shows were not our thing by any means, but it was really great experience for us to really do something that we, you know, we're not comfortable with, that we had no experience in, but we dove in and we did it. And, you know, it was great. So I'm thankful to my dad for making us do that.
I'm thinking you go into the country because we have some oil fields out in a little town called Jacksboro.
Yeah.
And so they have that 4-H stuff. So we donate and we bid on them. You know, that's as far as I've gotten into it. Now, if you ask a friend of mine, you know, as I told you, I'm from Fort Worth. She thinks I'm from the country in Fort Worth. I'm like, wait a minute, you know, but that's a whole other story. But no, the ag thing, I can't imagine being dumped into that just right off the bat going, all right, go learn this when you got kids that, like, even though you're still a kid, that, like, they were born the same night a lamb was born.
Oh, yeah. They had been, like, most of these kids had been showing it. It was, like, part of their family. It was in their DNA. They knew what they were doing. Oh, it was such an experience. I mean, even down to, like, I didn't even have the right clothes. I've always been, like, a fashionista, and that's really where a lot of my background, like, now comes from. But, like, I would wear, like, bell bottoms and high heel, like, jelly shoes to these shows, and everyone would be like, who is this girl or what is she doing? Yes. And, you know, so it was quite the experience. And I don't even know if they do that anymore out in Frostburg because it's definitely changed a lot. But.
Well, I hope they still do because the 4-H and the FFA and they do a lot of great. Yeah, it's great experiences for kids. And shoot, I know at the Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo, I think the grand champion steer just went for like $300,000.
It was like great entrepreneurial experience for your kids. I want to learn like a good small business or raising chickens and selling the eggs. I mean, like you can learn a lot through these programs. So.
Well, okay, you mentioned a little while ago that you like giving back with your company and helping out others. All right. Second Amendment. What are you doing to fight for us to continue to have the Second Amendment? Because you're doing a lot.
Yeah,
What's going on?
Advocacy is a really big part of what I was doing even before we started the company. But so on the advocacy side, I work with groups called Gun Owners of America that do a lot of the really grassroots lobbying and policy efforts that are helping to just basically be watchdogs. Anything that's going on with the Second Amendment at a state or a federal level, they are on it. They're informing their members, kind of what the NRA was doing, but they're doing it in a little bit different way. That's a really heavy focused on the policy side. So I am their Texas chapter coordinator. So I'm putting events together for women in Texas and really trying to push that forward because what I think is lacking on the education side of why the Second Amendment is even important, it's gotten really skewed when the only thing we ever hear about on the media are the horrible things that are done by really bad people with the firearm. The firearm always gets the blame for it. And unfortunately, unless people have a good understanding of why the Second Amendment was even put into our Constitution in the first place, it's very easy for us to go back and be like, well, you know what? Like, I'm not exercising that right. I must not need it. Yeah. I'm not using it. So you don't really care if you lose it. And you don't care if other people lose that right either. But I tell people, it is so important to remember that our founding fathers did not write the Second Amendment when they came back from a hunting trip. Yeah. They wrote it when they came back from liberating a nation. And they put it in there because they understood that without the ability to defend and protect your freedom, you don't really have freedom. Yeah. And so that is why like the policy side is so important to me. And then as we dial it into actually exercising our rights, a big part of what I love to do is to just encourage women to exercise their rights. Because like I said, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. Yes. And for me, I was somebody that I always thought the Second Amendment was important, but I was not utilizing it on a daily basis by any means. I thought the people that did that were paranoid, to be quite honest. And, now my mindset has obviously changed because I was reactive to a bad situation. I want more women to be proactive, and that doesn't mean every woman needs to carry a firearm. For me, being proactive about your self-reliance, your safety, and your preparedness means having the tools that you need to feel confident and able to take care of yourself and your family. So for a lot of women, they will never get to a point where they're comfortable carrying a firearm on their body.
Yeah.
And that's okay. For us, because of our pockets and the way that we have designed our line, it gives women the ability to carry any kind of self-defense tool. So whether that's mace, whether that's a taser, whether that is a small stun gun, or maybe they just want to carry their keys, their phone, their lipstick, and they just don't want to carry a purse. It's very functional for all of your essentials.
Ooh.
But eventually we want to move people into this mindset of thinking, well, this company built in pockets to put a self-defense tool. Like, do I need a self-defense tool? Should I be more proactive about my safety, my children's safety? And that's what I want. I want to start getting women into this mindset of how do you be prepared in all areas of your life? Because as we've seen, unfortunately, the cops can't be everywhere at all the time. And when seconds matter, the cops are minutes away. And a lot of these places where cops' budgets are getting defunded as well, and we're losing the number of cops, they are not going to be able to stop every bad thing from happening. They'll show up after the fact, but they cannot stop everything. So you really are your first line of defense. You are your family's first line of defense. And you got to think about that in terms of, what's going to give your family and you the best chance of surviving if somebody does wish or intend to do harm.
Yeah. And you talk about paranoid, and you talk about how times are crazy. My answer to that is absolutely. I voted for Donald Trump twice. All right, who would have ever thought? So yes, times are crazy.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to do it for a third time.
Yep.
But then you talk about being paranoid. I don't know what's going on in the world today. Yeah. Nobody does, because I'm even like, I feel weird and paranoid judging myself sometimes, going, should I buy? Because I'm not a stocking up
like
of ammo.
Prepper. Yeah.
I'm not a prepper.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, so should I maybe go move this stuff over here to keep it closer to me?
Yeah.
Or should I maybe go buy this extra case of ammunition this week? Because we don't know what's going on right now. And I think it's okay for people not to feel paranoid anymore, because so many things are not.
Yeah. Well, this is what I say. Like, look, being prepared actually reduces the paranoia, and it's no different. Remember back in the day, we used to all keep spare tires in our car.
Yes, ma'am.
A lot of times now they don't even put spare tires in your car anymore because the tires don't necessarily need them. But when you have a spare, you're not waking up every day thinking my tire is going to blow out. You're thinking, okay, I'm good. If something happens, I have it. But you don't think you're going to need it every single day. Yeah. You would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Amen.
And it's the same way to me with my firearm. But to that point, the firearm is not the only tool in every single situation.
Heck no.
And, there's a misconception, I think, with people that carry firearms. A lot of times the media wants to portray us as people that can't wait to use that tool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, absolutely not. And that is actually one of the biggest things that I try to teach women is like, what are these steps that you can take to get out of a situation, A, to never be in that situation,
right.
B, to get out of the situation, and C, what can you do prior to ever have, like that tool is the absolute last line of defense that you have if all else fails, but at least you have it. If you need it, you have it. But let's learn about all the things that we can do prior, because Lord knows I don't ever want to have to use that tool, but I have it if I need it. And
no different than first aid. It's like,
exactly.
And I like what you said, being prepared removes the paranoia.
Yeah.
And that is so true. And
it does.
I like that.
Yeah. It's no, stocking up on extra water. I mean, just think about situations that don't have anything to do with, firearms or anything. Just when we had the freeze, how many years ago, and we had no electricity for two weeks or however long it was in our area. And I'm like, oh my goodness, everyone was thinking, wait, okay, did I have enough food that we could get through? Like, what was in my refrigerator? If that goes bad, do we have stuff that we don't need refrigerated? Did we stock enough water? I mean, there's just things that you actually have no idea what could happen in your life. And just being a little extra prepared, buying that extra, pound of rice or beans or that big jug of water.
Yeah.
Every time you go to the grocery store, just to kind of have some things on hand, because you don't know if we're going to run into that. Our Texas officials keep telling us we're never going to have another power grid breakdown like that again, but we don't know. You don't have any idea. And I'd rather have it than, not have it.
the other thing you mentioned was, I like how you said you have steps in place, because I know for me on a personal level, I love to hunt, right? And fish, right?
Yep.
So the only time I'm pointing the gun at something is when I'm pulling the trigger
Exactly.
to kill it.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine, the only time I could ever see myself pointing the gun,
Yeah.
it's not to say stop. It's not to do,
Right.
it's actually, if I'm pointing the gun at a human being, it is to pull the trigger. So
Yeah.
that's something that I always
Which
have a
means
tough
your
time
life
with.
is in
you know?
danger. It
Right.
means that you have no other, like, that's an imminent threat on your
Yes.
life. And there's a big element back when we used to have to get our concealed carry license in Texas. Now we have, constitutional carry laws. I still am a big proponent for people going through the license to carry
Tell us
course.
why. Yeah, let's stop until, because it's so important.
It is.
really
So,
is.
So when we moved to constitutional carry, you now don't have to have a license to carry it concealed on your body. However, you are still responsible to know all the laws surrounding self-defense and use of lethal force. So it would behoove you to take the license to carry course, because that is what the majority of that course focuses on, is the law of self-defense. What situations warrant using deadly force? What you are going to be held accountable for by the law, even if you do have your license to carry or you were in the right as somebody who, is protecting your life. Well, you need to know what's going to happen. You're still going to get booked. You're still going to jail. You are still going to have a court date. You still will have all of these things. And they talk you through all of that, not to scare you, but I think to give you a greater sense of urgency, of the sense of responsibility that you have when you're carrying a tool on your body that, can take a life. That's a huge responsibility. And for the majority of people that have their license or do conceal carry, that weighs on them very, very heavy, and they take that responsibility very serious. And, so that's why when we talk about limiting access to firearms or limiting people's ability to have a tool that protects their lives, everyone thinks about it in terms of how do we get these tools out of the hands of people that have mental illness that shouldn't be getting the firearms. Those are the ones you have to worry about. It's not the people with their concealed carry license that anybody is worried about. And that is over 20 million people. So when we talk about putting more laws on the books to stop people from accessing firearms, you are actually talking about limiting law-abiding citizens, not doing anything to stop people with mental illness that are going to get their hands on it regardless of what the law says. They're already committing a crime when they go and commit a mass shooting. They're already ignoring the laws that are on the book. So why do we think adding more laws to the book are going to stop them?
Yes.
It's only stopping law-abiding citizens.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And it's so different than, like, I always use the example of driving. It's like, okay, if there's a solid line, it's your choice whether or not you can go over it. And then also, you talked about how the mental illness and when people are using guns, I like how we blame the guns. One of the best things bumper stickers I ever saw, was the one with the pencil analogy that if guns kill people, if people kill, or what is it? No. Oh gosh, I just forgot. If guns kill people, then do pencils misspell words?
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
Yes, it's like, because who's in charge of the pencil that misspells the word?
Exactly.
Then who's in charge of the gun?
It's no different than when a drunk driver gets in a car accident and kills somebody with their car. People aren't blaming the car.
Yeah.
They're always blaming the person behind the car. And it's the same thing with the firearm. It's not that tool. That tool can actually be used for many good things, providing for your family with food, for sport, for self-defense. So no one talks about the good that the tool could do.
But I like how you're calling it a tool, because it's genius. Because, like, let's say, okay, I'm going to tie in oil and gas. They get rid of oil and gas today. Okay, we can't preserve our food anymore. We can't, do long-term food preparation and stuff. All right, all that kind of stuff goes away. Guess what? We're back to hunting and farming for our own stuff. And so I love how you call it a tool. It's like, it really makes sense. So, like, for me, maybe it's more of a leisure tool. Like, you can go dove hunt, pheasant hunt, deer hunt. Yeah. However, I do, harvest that meat, as I think is one of the new fancy words I use for hunting. Instead of I eat the meat, it's a harvest thing now. But no, it's just, I like the way you use that. So you definitely know what you're talking about.
I will say, so I went through the whole NRA certification process to become a basic handgun instructor. And that is one thing that they drill in your head is, like, don't call it a weapon, because it's not always used as a weapon. A weapon connotates, and it has negative connotations with it. Yeah. Whereas the tool, which is what it is, it can be used in a multitude of ways. And so it's just like, a hammer. Well, a hammer can be a weapon.
Yeah.
A hammer can also be a tool that nails, builds your house and does this. So it's anything can be used as a weapon. And it can be an assault hammer if you assault somebody with it.
Right.
It's no different than that firearm. So yes, it is a tool, and we have to be really careful with the language that we use associated with it because of how many people are really trying to take away that right from law-abiding citizens. And so, that's just one reason that I really want to help educate people on the positive things that could be used, like what a firearm can be used for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you talk about I just think the memories that you get, like me, I remember growing up and my dad had the old Army Navy surplus store bed mats. Yeah. And we would lay them down on our patio and then get our BB guns and we'd lay down, and then we'd sit there and then that then escalated into a single shot shotgun and so on. So I love what you're doing. I want to switch gears real quick.
Okay.
I want to talk elections. As people know, I've had on several great guests already that are running for different, whether it's railroad commissioner, Congress, a lot of great people on the show. You have a group that you're working with or started trying to get people off or to vote with no time off on election day.
Well, okay, so let me explain it to you. Yeah. So it's called the Metroplex Civic and Business Association, and I help run it with my buddy Louie. He started the organization back in 2021, and it was actually with a focus on getting the business community back engaged into what's happening locally. So there was a group of companies that really wanted to see Dallas continue to be a very strong place for businesses to thrive, because we know that when business thrives, that is when everybody has the best chance to succeed. You have a better chance for better wages. You have a better chance to provide for yourself and your loved ones. Yeah. And so what was happening is that people have largely ignored what's happening at the local level.
Yes.
Forgetting or not even realizing how the decisions that are made at the local level through your city council, your mayor, your school boards, how those are actually affecting our everyday life and what they are doing to affect how the business community is either going to thrive or it's going to die. And so what we started seeing around the country, especially after the pandemic, was these once thriving cities around our nation, when the regulations and the taxes and the crime and the homelessness started hitting those cities, you started to see these businesses leave. And when business leaves your city, your city is going to die. Yes. And so, we were seeing great things happen in Dallas from an economic standpoint, but there was a group of companies that were like, but we're starting to see taxes and regulations go up. Crime is going up in Dallas. The homelessness situation is escalating. And if we don't want to turn into a metroplex that dies because all of our businesses are leaving, then we need to do something about it. Yeah. So the whole goal was to get the business community involved by not just activating the leaders and the CEOs of the companies in Dallas, but to have a program in place that would help get the employees educated, get them the information that they need, and then have strategies and programs in place that would get them to the polls.
Yeah.
And so my buddy Louie, he started this in 2021. I joined Alexo up as a member company, and I believe it was probably right when they started, because I was looking for a way to get my employees more active and engaged in the community. We wanted to do more community service. And then when I heard about this voting piece, I was like, you know what? Come to think of it, I'm so embarrassed. I don't think I've ever voted in a local election before. And I hadn't, and neither had any of my employees. Okay. But I would have considered myself a voter.
Yeah.
So 7% of people vote in local elections. So you're letting 7% dictate what happens, with Dallas, like a $5 billion budget, and without having a say in how that money is spent, without having a say. So we want employees to have a say. We want their voices to be heard. Yeah. And I encourage every business. So it is set up like a regional chamber. So it's a 501c6. Okay. And just like, the regional chamber is great for doing policy and advocacy work for the business community at the state and local level. And they really do a good job of involving the leaders. They don't have a program specific for employees. And that's where the MCBA is different, is that it actually has a program that gets people involved in these local elections. And we're talking nonpartisan elections here.
Yes.
So in Texas, it's not like this in every state, but our local elections, so when we say local elections, we're talking mayor, city council, school board, and some other municipal positions. They don't run on a Republican or Democrat ticket.
No, they don't.
So if you want a down ballot vote, it stops at the local elections, and you have to actually know who you want to vote for, because some of these races have 5 or 6 people running for one position. And just to give you an idea, in Dallas County alone, some of the races last time were won by less than 200 votes, and only 1,400 people voted in that district. So we're talking small margins here that just, if you participate, your voice will be heard, and it is more powerful in the local elections than it even is in the state and federal election.
That is so true, Amy, that the way that, I'll keep the politics out of it, but the best way I can, I guess. We both talked about, it takes a village. And what I feel like it is we need to protect our village by these voting. Because like you said, you just said, nobody votes anymore on these little local elections. And so I know for us over in the mid-cities area, it's like, okay, here's, we got two people running, because it's primary season. Well, us being a business, we're like, all right, hey, talk to us. Let's see what's going on, because I know one of the races is real dynamic for us. I got Kim Paxton supporting one of them, and I've been supporting the other one. I'm like, well, that's kind of okay, that's different. They're kind of lined up to make it easier, to do the influence.
Right.
But no, what's happening in our schools and at the local levels is really then expanding from there because of what I feel like we're being taught at the school level and at the local level. Then it escalates to the region, to the state, to the national level. So I think really what one side was able to do to get in there and do that, I think we're really seeing the effects now 20 years later.
Well, and what the MCBA really focuses on is transparency. So what we are really pushing towards right now is to get our elected officials to be more transparent and where the money is going to be spent on this bond. There's a $1.2 billion bond proposal that's coming up in Dallas County. If you want to say how that money is spent, MCBA really wants to push them to be more transparent about that. When it comes to school boards, we want our elected officials on the school board to be transparent as well. Where is money going that gets allocated for different contracts? And so just keeping everybody accountable. And crazy enough, like there's just not accountability standards and measures right now I'm sure that's not shocking to anybody, with our government, but that's really what we want to do. We want to hold them accountable, and we want to say, look, we have right now, there's about 130 companies that are members of MCBA that represents 10,000 employees across the Metroplex. And that's a big number. That is a big number. We just had 2 city council members come and speak to us at our leadership luncheon. And they were like, look, if you want things done, show up to city council meetings, come and speak. We don't see a lot of business leaders at our city council meetings, but we listen. And when there are groups that show up, and they show up in large numbers, we're talking like 20 to 50 people. It's not really that large, but it's loud enough to get the attention of the city council members, and they want to get reelected. They want to get back in there and continue to have their jobs. So they listen, and they said, look, so we kind of are getting the band back together. We're bringing the business leaders together. We're helping to inform them that their voice is heard and can be heard. So we put together different programs to help people speak at city council, prep them, let them know, like, this is how you do it. Here's what's going to be on their agenda to talk about. And we have really great programs that just help make it very easy for the business owners to get involved, and then for their employees to get involved as well.
Amy, you have just been a freaking encyclopedia of models today. And we did not get to talk about your NRA, time representing the NRA, or your podcast. Will you at least mention the name of your podcast real quick?
Yeah, so it's called Not Your Average Gun Girls, and you can find it on Spotify. We're on our hiatus right now. We're about to start up our next season here probably in the next couple of months, but you can find it on the Apple, iTunes podcast, Google, Stitch. It's everywhere. So everywhere you can find it,
And then how can people, can you give the Alexo Athletica website one more time,
Yes,
please?
it's www.alexoathletica.com. That is Alex with an O.
Alex with an O.
Alex with an O.
And for individuals that got more questions about the Metroplex, I love how you're using the word Metroplex. Bringing that back.
Bringing it back, yeah.
Want to help out with the Metroplex or with the Second Amendment? How can people get in contact with you and your team?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you just email info@alexoathletica.com, any of these questions, I'll even be happy to answer the MCBA stuff there as well, but they will get that to the right area. If you've got questions about the product, maybe you've got a question on what type of firearm or tool is going to fit into the pants. Maybe you have a sizing question. Maybe you have any questions like that. Our team loves to answer those questions, and we'll get right back to you and help just kind of steer you in the right direction on, we'll find out what activities you like to do, what type of products are you really looking for, what firearm do you want to carry, do you carry, and then we'll actually help point to resources as well if we can't answer something.
I love it. Well, Amy, again, I cannot thank you enough for coming on today. You really shared the crude truth on what's going on from a local level to how the Second Amendment is so important to us. And we didn't even talk about the fact that you're basically one of the best CEO mommy managers ladies that are out there. So just thank you so much. And I hope to have you on again.
I would love to. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much. And to all our listeners and viewers out there, thank you as always. And we'll see you again on another episode of The Crude Truth.
Again, The Crude Truth would like to thank today's sponsors: LFS Chemistry, NAPE Expo, Air Compressor Solutions, Sandstone Group, Exec Crew, Texas Star Alliance, Pecos Country Operating, and Real News Communication Network.
The easiest way to start your own podcast and TV show? Real News Communications Network. Stand out from your competition. Produce streams of high-quality social media content. Become a thought leader in your industry. With RNCN, you get to be the host. We handle everything else. Tour one of our 3 locations in Dallas, Fort Worth, and the Colony. Call 972-402-6333 or visit launchashow.com to find out more.